Right.
Is that play?
Doesn't say play, but it is. This is record. This is the recorded one. Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me about that cellar hole again. I'll just forget that this is even
I
on.
don't know what I'm going to say now.
Now, come on, Viola.
You ask me, I will.
I think we were doing much better when you were just talking about it.
Well, I'm sure.
This is going to inhibit you, I guess. If it does, we won't
I'm
use it.
sure. Oh, it's getting easier.
Yeah.
Talking about Mr. Kelly and your father getting in touch with him about the cellar.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
she wanted to know.
Your mother was about it.
She wanted to know about the cell hole first.
You got a new foundation.
We have just a hole where we put barrels of apples and potatoes and other vegetables we had. And my mother canned and used to put things down there. And she used to have to be very careful because sometimes even down there, I think things would get cold. It would be too cold and freeze.
Yeah.
But it was down low enough so that it was, I guess, freezing. And then Mr. Kelly came and put in a cement cellar. I can't talk, but they've been going.
How did he do it?
And well, he just had the jack of the house and put the foundation in, and we had at that time. Then we had a full cement cellar, which was.
Did you have to dig it out first? And then
Dig
dig it out in the house?
What happened?
Dug out from under the cellar, from under the.
Did things go on
Everything
normally
went
while
on.
this was
We
all
lived-
happening?
It was jacked up. The house was jacked up, and we lived normally, but they had to carry the dirt out from under the cellar
Yeah.
and put in the cement and the foundation, which we were terribly happy. My mother, of course, it was a great thing.
Yeah.
And we had stairs down to the cellar. And this was just great.
Your mother was she a COVIL?
Yeah.
IL from Pittsburgh.
Yes, she came from Pittsburgh, and she was one of the descendants of the old settlers who came up here, who were COVILs.
Mm-hmm.
And the family went up to this family, went to Pittsburgh, and her in turn built their own, I guess, first log cabin. And up in Pittsburgh, up on the hill. And well, she walked 3 miles to school. 3 or 4 months.
How old was she when she was married?
She always said, I used to say, well, Mother, you were 16 when you were married. She said, I was going to be 17 my next birthday. She was
Isn't
really
that?
old.
Yeah. Now your father though had a little bit different.
My father was 7 years old.
Yeah. So he was all 23 or so.
He was 23. I think.
He had come from England into
He
Canada.
came from Ireland
Ireland.
to Canada, and he worked for I don't know how many years in Canada, and then he came down here, and worked in the woods, and he worked for some lumber company, possibly the CBL. Was that going then?
Connecticut Valley Lumber.
I think it was.
Do you know what year he would come down?
No, it would be the early
You were born in 1908.
80s. So it
You
was,
were the youngest of that
yeah,
family.
and
She must have
there
been.
were 15 before that, so it was, there were 15 years before
Before
that
that.
he
The
had
next
children.
year. Yeah.
So it was
Definitely an
probably-
afterthought.
Yeah.
So, yeah. 1898, probably 1890
And
maybe.
he came down here and worked in the woods, and the first time he voted, I wish I could remember the man who came into the woods and got all these people who were Canadians, who were not, they were not, of course he wasn't a Canadian, theoretically.
Yeah.
But all these people to come out to vote, and they were to vote for Cleveland, and he promised them.
Cleveland ran in 1884.
Okay,
So this gives you an idea.
so
First time he ran,
he promised them that if they came out and voted, they could get their citizenship. And there was some deal there that he brought them
That's
up
interesting.
to vote. And
See,
now
Cleveland ran in 1884, and then he ran again in 1892, so it could have been one of the other times.
Well, 92 would give 16 years. It would probably be the 16 years because her sister's 15 years older than I, and it's probably like a year before she was born or something like that.
You think maybe it was 1892 rather than the 1884?
I would almost think.
Yeah. See, that's interesting.
And of course, he said after he voted for Cleveland, I believe Cleveland was a Democrat. He had to be
Yes, he
part of
was.
the story.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I will never vote for another damn Democrat. We had the hardest times we ever had.
Under Cleveland, yeah.
Under Cleveland.
I remember because I just finished this biography of Teddy Roosevelt, and he was active in that campaign. Not for Blaine. Blaine ran against the Republican candidate. He wound up being the Republican candidate. But Teddy Roosevelt and some of his friends supported another man other than Blaine. And then Cleveland turned out to be the Democratic candidate.
Well, it must have been a hard time during that.
This was 1884 now. In 1892, I had to check it
Now,
out.
what happened? It must have been a hard time during that time because my father said he had the
Well,
hardest years of his life.
The Panic of 1893 came along, so chances are it would have been the 18, not the 1884 with Blaine ran, but the 1892 campaign, and then this panic. That's what your father was talking about then, in 1893. This is great.
So we had, I mean, that, well, that was way back. That was before we were on the hill on Jordan Hill, because I was the only one born there. But he had lived, my family had lived around in Pittsburgh, and they lived out in Colbrook, and they lived around various places.
Before they finally wound up on Jordan.
They wound up on the farm, which they bought from my mother's brothers. And as I say, it was a great place to grow up kids, even though we felt we were very poor, but we always had plenty to eat. And
but you know, it's so funny when you say that. Actually, you were so rich in other ways.
Yeah.
It's almost unbelievable.
And we had all kinds of animals. The only problem with the animals was we always took over the baby animals, and they were always promised to us. And then we saw them going down the road because, of course, when they got old enough to sell,
Kaboom.
they had to be sold. And I was always heartbroken, and it did something to me. I really think this did something to me regarding farming, because I didn't like to lose these lovely little animals, and they were really the only part of the farm that I liked. I liked babies.
Fern,
She's a food.
go take a nap.
Go
on. I'll be here when you wake up.
Yes, because she's going to stay for dinner. Okay.
No, I'm not going to stay for dinner, but I'll be around. Yeah, I'll be there. This is super, Viola. Just seeing that place. I'd love to see it in the sunshine. Really.
Well,
beautiful.
It breaks my heart.
Of course it does.
Because
would you rather not go up there?
Oh no. I gotta face it. My God, I'm going to, when this house is done, I shall come and say, this I have, and it was the way material things, as far as that's concerned, don't mean. I mean, they are not going to mean anything to me, except for the time being. My own feelings about things, and people. Are very different. I'm not a materialistic person as far as such.
Except that when you tie in something as that house, it has so many memories. Those memories come rushing right back.
Well, I remember when, at the time, you might like to hear this, it's kind of my story. When I got ready to leave there, my father sold the farm to my brother, and I was heartbroken. All of a sudden, I was going to lose my school. I was going to leave my school, and I'd never been anywhere. And the distance I had ever been was up here, and so I didn't want to leave. And my father said, "You don't have to leave. You can live here with Gerald if you want to. I'm sure he'd be glad to have and which I thought was more psychology than you can learn in college.
Yes.
Because
Gerald was getting married, wasn't he?
Gerald was married. Yeah. He had gotten married, and my father had bought a house down on the river where I ended up living. Mm-hmm. And so he said, "Oh, sure, you can live with us and go to school here." You know. Mm-hmm. Well, I stayed a week, and at the end of the week, of course, I wanted to go down and see my mother. Mm-hmm. And I went down, and she said, "Well, we have a room for you if you want to stay." And but they didn't force me, they didn't push me, and I always thought that it was the smartest thing they ever did. I would have hated it for years if they had pushed me, and instead I decided I wanted to stay. And my father was smart enough to know, leave her alone. Yeah. She'll be done when she gets ready. She wants to live with us. Yeah. And so I moved down and went down to the other school down in South London. Mm-hmm. And of course, wouldn't have gone back up there for anything. But the things I didn't want to leave were the stone walls. A tree that I used to sit in and read when my mother wanted me to do the dishes. And various nooks and crannies. And they were lovely blackberry bushes. And there were the apple orchards. I couldn't understand my father reading those apple orchards. These things, because they were great. I knew the trees that had the greatest apples, and the sweetest apples. There were, I don't know, years ago they planted these apples, I think, like Johnny Apple trees, because they planted special trees. They don't have them around here. They don't have them around here anymore. But they plant. Trees that grow best. And at that time, they had all these different kinds of trees. They had the old pumpkin sweet, and they had the Alexander apple, and they had the peach apple, and I think there was an apple called Bleeding. I don't remember. But there were all these different apples. I bet we had at least 10 different kinds of apples in that summer and in those orchards. Mm-hmm. So, and then that little school that you went to, how many were in the school? Well, sometimes there were as many as 10. Yeah. All the kids on the hill. There were kids on the hill and the Grays and the Simses that lived down on these other two. Mm-hmm. I think they were the only two families that came to school outside of any kids that were on the hill. Mm-hmm. And there were, until I went down on the flat in Columbia, I was the only one in my grade. Mm-hmm. And so really what happened, I usually went down to the teacher's desk or possibly go down and sit in front of the desk, recite my lesson, or stand and read to her, whatever I had. If I didn't work with someone else in a group of a different grade, and go back to my seat and sit there until it was my turn again. And she gave me so many pages to read, and I did the stuff, and that's all there was to it. Mm-hmm. And of course, the way I felt that today, we push our children too much to make you do this and you do this and what do you have to do. Mm-hmm. And the way I feel is the way I felt years ago. I would go into school and I couldn't wait to get my work done. So then I could do what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have the things to do that they have to do in school now. And so I just feel that children are given too much to do. So when they get around, when it's not done, you haven't given us anything, so we don't do anything. But we were always busy. I can't remember not being busy. It was a thing you had to do. You had to have something to do. And oftentimes, I'm reversing my own statement. Sometimes, for a treat, if we got our work done, we were allowed to go out and play. And we could go out and play by ourselves. And we had an old seesaw over a log. And we could go out there as long as we were quiet and didn't make any noise that would come back, resound in the school. We could go out there and play. Or we could take a book out or do what we wanted as long as we did our work. And I still think we have an incentive to do it.
Yes, I do too. I do too. There weren't so many things foisted on you.
And I think
they're foisted on you.
I think we thought about things, and I think things that were important to us became very important. They were great glories, whereas today, things are, oh yes, you have this, and you have that, or I have something better than you, and so on.
Yeah, it's just one more thing. So the next thing comes along. I think this is great. I'm enjoying it.
Well, it's kind of old hat to me because I have always thought when I got going on this stuff that it was very boring to everybody I talked to.
No, it has always fascinated me. That's why I used to try and get Henrietta to talk. She was another one.
Well, I used to feel oftentimes when I was teaching that there were so many things that I could remember that came out of my own instruction. And the teachers didn't do much. Our classroom was a quiet classroom. It was very, very quiet. Now, I don't know whether it impressed the other kids or not. There were certainly children who didn't want to learn, as there always
will be.
And there were kids that were very, as they call them, very, very naughty. But I just felt that I love asking lessons. And if I did, why shouldn't people like it? Why should they have to have a holiday? Why should they have to have music by the side? Why should they have to have this? I mean, to me, sometimes the dead silence is better.
How many grades were covered? 1 through 8?
1 through as many as
it was necessary, yeah.
And sometimes there were, I don't remember that there were ever less than probably 6 in the grade in the school. But they used to, at that time, they never put together the classes. I think actually they started putting classes together maybe when I was 11 and went down to the other school. Because maybe it was because these were small groups anyway. But they used to just recite it, so to speak. And I can remember the old fish pond with words on the blackboard, and coming in the morning and sitting down and scanning this blackboard and being a little upset if I didn't already know the words. Because then it would make me quite smart as I thought they ought to be.
Do you remember any specific teacher? Did you have one teacher for the whole time you were there, or did the teachers change?
I remember. Oh no, there were lots of teachers. There were, in fact, probably more than in some schools because it wasn't probably one of the special schools in the place because it was so small. And whoever taught there lived down at the foot of the hill, except the teacher who taught the year before I went to school. And I remember she lived at our house. Where she lived at
I was just going to say,
I
where did they
know.
find room to put it?
Well, by that time, some of the family had gone out from the other family. They had grown up and gone. And because I was not very many, because that would be, my sister was 15 years old. So it could be quite a number.
But when the teacher lived at your house, she was boarded, she was fed, and had a place to sleep.
And I remember my mother. I always thought she didn't like her too much because she thought I wanted to go to school because, of course, when the kids started school, I always needed to go to school, and I was always down hanging around from home. And my mother Well, she wanted to make me happy, and she didn't see any reason why I couldn't go down there and go into that school, and I'd be good, you know. But this teacher said no, I was too young.
How old were you?
Oh, I don't know, but I was 4 or 5 then. But anyway, probably maybe 4 going on 5 or something like that, or 5 going on. I don't remember. But I remember that teacher left in the middle of the year, and Lou Wallace's sister went down and finished the year. And she lived, I guess, she lived at home. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was little, and I remembered that my mother sent me down to school, and she kept me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there probably, well, I was there on and off, and I looked up the records later, and I had many toddy marks in the morning. And I'm sure my mother let me sleep until I woke up, and then I got down to school, so I was just toddy. And then at the end of the school, I had about 2 weeks or so that I didn't go to school, so I must have had measles or something.
Where did you find these records?
I found it there here in the school.
In our
Yes, you might.
superintendent's office.
They're in the superintendent's office.
Oh, yeah.
They're right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked them up. I looked them up when I retired from school. I went down and I said, "Good, I will do so." And so anyway, maybe the last 2 weeks I was out of school, and I thought I probably had measles or something at that time. And the next year, they put me in 2nd grade. So that took care of that first year.
Mm-hmm. When the teacher lived at the house, would she have her own room?
Or she had her own room, and God knows where everybody slept. I don't believe. I think my 2 older sisters were away then by that time, and my oldest brother. And so I think that eliminated, you see, that eliminated the bedroom. And I think that then my younger sister and I took care of it. Oh yes, she had a room by herself, I'm sure.
And this was called the Jordan Hill School.
That's the Jordan Hill School. Oh yes, and I used to go. I made the rounds with all the. I don't think I did when I came down to Columbia, but up there while I was going up there, I made the rounds with the teachers to their homes on weekends. So they used to take the kids home to visit, which was a pretty good thing. It was kind of nice.
Then you went down to live on the house near the river. And where did you go to school? On the river.
Oh yes, it was on
the one where Angel is now.
I went, yes, and I went to school down in Columbia then, in that school that
Cone
I guess
School?
you didn't
Is that
see that.
Cone
That's
School?
Cone School, and that's now been built. And that's the school from, and I was there a year.
Then you were ready to go to high school?
And yeah.
Is that CONE?
Yeah. And at that time, we took exams for high school.
Yeah.
And it was so different then. And I think, of course, we have so many more people now, and you have to have different regulations. But I remember the teacher used to leave every noon and go home for lunch. And we kids used to stay there by ourselves. And I never remember anything going on that was ever, we took care of ourselves. Everybody took care of each other, and the older ones took care of the younger ones.
Do you remember the name of the teacher that encouraged you to take the exam at
Yes.
Colbrook Academy?
Eleanor Cooper.
Cooper?
Eleanor Cooper. And she asked me if I thought if I could pass the exam. She said, I think you could take the exams. And if you pass the exams, do you think you could go to high school? And I told her, no, I really didn't think so. And she said, why don't you find out? And I went home and I told my father, and I got a promise of it. I passed the exams because I was in 7th grade, and I think that is equal to him. And he said, well, I would pass anyway.
No problem.
No problem. So anyway, I got a promise out that if I passed the exams, he'd see that I went to high school. And of course,
how old were you? 12?
I was 12 when I went to high school. And so I'd never visited my mother.
Yeah.
I hadn't even been uptown much. I'd ride uptown with my father and go to visit the relatives once in a while. And it was a big deal for me. But anyway, come September, he found me a place to live, and I came up here and lived in Cisco.
Now this was September of 1916, probably. No, wait a minute.
Oh no.
No.
1923.
23.
And because it was
born in 1920.
1920. And so I came up here, and in the first part of the year, I don't remember which years I did this, but for the spring and fall, I used to drive a horse up. And sometimes I had someone ride with me.
So they could take the horse.
Whoever could ride.
In a cart of some kind?
We had a
wagon.
A regular horse and wagon. And we came up, and we would take turns. I'd have my horse part of the time, and then whoever rode with us with me had his horse. And we kept the horse in a place over here at Sims's, bowling alley, Bonds. And then when it got cold weather, I stayed uptown with my father boarded.
And you stayed at Cisco's right along?
Yes. And well, I stayed at one of the places for a little while, and I was very unhappy there, and so that's all right. Never mind.
Yeah.
And so Etta Cisco said, well, you can come back here, and she let me come back.
Did you have to do any work around the house?
I did. My father thought I was too young, and he said, if you're going up there to school, you're going to study.
Yeah. So that's why he paid to have you there.
And so he said, and he knew I was in good hands, and so I stayed there. And it was a great time.
Then you'd go home weekends?
And yes.
Would somebody come and get you?
Yes. I wasn't able to get into much, because as far as to go to things, because my father said, you're going to school and that's all that's necessary, and
don't need to socialize.
No, and I couldn't play basketball, and I couldn't get into plays and things because Friday night was the night those things happened. But later, as I got to be a junior or senior, I got to stay over occasionally. I mean, I got around that some, so I did a few more things.
Do you remember some of the teachers in high school that particularly impressed you? Was Lucy Drew there at that time?
No, that was, I think she may have been teaching away, and she may have been just married and not teaching. I don't know. She's over years old.
Yes.
No, I remember a few teachers. I remember a Miss Bowen, which was a French teacher, and a Miss Flagg, who was my first French teacher. And the greatest thrill of my life was getting French letters from her. After my freshman year, she sent me cards and letters, and in French, and I could read them, and I really was elated with French, and probably should have taken languages. I missed the boat, but we had no counselors, we had no advisors.
Yeah.
So, but it was all right.
You told me one time what course you actually took.
I took a commercial course.
Commercial course.
And with the commercial course, you got a domestic arts, as they called it then, a home ec course. And you just had all this junk, you know.
Yeah.
You had all kinds of things. And I don't regret it, but I lacked a lot of education that I should have had. The one thing that I do regret was when I went away to school, as far as the teachers' college was concerned, I felt that I learned what I already knew, and I learned to teach what I already knew, which was good as far as teaching was concerned, but it wasn't enough to satisfy me.
Yeah. How wonderful though that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Really?
Because I spent time ever since.
And it never stops.
Oh, I don't know the difference.
I really don't think.
Sometimes I'm amazed, and sometimes I think, well, why don't I quit?
Yeah, but that would be wrong. Yeah.
Oh, I can't quit.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah. But then when you graduated from Colebrook Academy, and what year did you graduate in? 1924. That was the year I was born. You graduated in June. I was born in October.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because I remember kidding either you or Teresa Hicks one time about when they had that big reunion during the bicentennial. I said, hey, I could be your mascot. And nobody took me up on it, but I could have been, really, yeah. So if you ever have another one, you can invite me. And that guy slugs anybody, I'll slug him back.
Well, I expected to go into the bank. That was the reason, actually, I took commercial course. We had to make our own decisions, of course, all with our parents. And I had no choice. I didn't have too much guidance. And I decided, well, I could go into a bank to work or in an insurance office. And I did some work in an insurance office while I was going to school. I mean, we went in for a few days, and that's what we did.
I think this light will go off when it stops me. It usually clicks, but I wanted to be sure. This is my first go on.
And we had, I just figured, well, this is going to give me some work. And I don't have to go into a home and wash dishes for someone, which I didn't have any desire to do.
Yeah.
And the first, when I was a senior in high school, my superintendent said to me one day in the spring, how would you like to teach school? And I said, well.
Now, who was this man?
That was Arthur Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, couldn't you go down to summer school? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, why don't you talk to your parents about it? And he said, you might be able to go down. If you go for a summer school, I'll give you school.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's how I started teaching.
You did go for a summer school. Where?
I went that summer with $50 to pay for my summer education.
To Plymouth? To Plymouth.
$50. My schooling, all the expenses cost me $36. And I had $14 for whatever else I wanted to use for 6 weeks. And I got a ride down and back. So I was fortunate.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's how I started teaching.
Then you went into a one-room school.
And yes, in that little school up here, the Piper School, up here a mile out of town, 2 miles out of town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to write down names of some of these.
You may want to break that.
Let's see how this is going so far. Oh, no. No, we better not. We better finish it. Better finish this slide first.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many minutes is it now? How long does it go?
Looks like 47. We must
Is
be.
that a 90-minute?
Yeah, it's a 90-minute tape. That means 45 on each side.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. There's 90 minutes on each side.
That's what I wasn't sure of. This is 47, so we'll soon find out.
Yeah.
It must be 90 because it would have stopped at 45. It's 48 minutes now.
Yeah. Well, you can stop it and then stop it again if you want to.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, you don't have to try it. Because of it, I mean,
Yeah, we can
if you're
start
afraid you're going to foul it up.
Yeah. Let's see. Is the building that was at Piper School, is that gone now?
It is somewhere, I think, in Cayman.
In Canaan.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's somewhere. They moved it away. They
Mhm.
sold it.
So probably somebody has it as a home now.
I think. I'm not sure.
So when you began teaching, you were about 16.
I was 16 when I started.
Yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying I had 8 boys and 1 girl when I started teaching.
First year.
And one of the boys was a year younger than I.
Yeah. Did you find discipline at that time difficult? Because you
Well,
were
of
so
course,
young?
without any question, I was scared to death.
Yes.
But I never had very much trouble with discipline. I had a few instances. I never had any trouble there. And I think Mr. Irish realized that the kids were good kids. Therefore, he dared to put me because he knew I was young. And I worked very hard. I was really very serious. But after all, a kid 16 years old is very serious. You know, they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I ever had any discipline problems there. And then the next year, I had none really to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, I had a couple of rather rambunctious boys, one of whom was 16, and of course at that point,
You were 18
I
or
was
19.
2 years older,
Mm.
so I was still young. And they were fresh. But we took care of it. And my superintendent stood by me, and I mean,
How did you take care of it?
Well, one time, a boy got very angry with me because I kept him after school. And when he went out, not knowing what he was going to do, of course, I heard the doors locked. And I was locked in to the school. And it was a padlock. And I didn't have any key on the inside.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, but it was a one-room school. So I continued my work. And I didn't know that he might be around. I thought, well, if he's this mean to do this, he might be around and wonder what's going on. And he might think that I'd get all excited. So I continued my work and paid no attention until I got everything done. And probably an hour later, I opened the window and went out the
Bailed
window
out.
and came home and called my superintendent.
Where were you living?
I was living at the Woodrows, up through the field, at the Woodrows, and at the farmhouse. And I called the superintendent, and at that time, Mr. Woodrow was on school board.
Oh.
And I was very careful not to tell anything that ever went on in school, because somewhere, I don't know where I got it in school or where, but I had learned to shut my mouth. And they never heard anything about stuff in school. And because I just felt I shouldn't tell it. It was private. And anything parents came and told me, I thought I shouldn't tell. And so I said to the superintendent, what's his name? Mr. Keller. I said, Mr. Keller, I wonder if you can come up to school soon. And he said, I'll be up there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
That was all the conversation, and he was there. He knew I didn't call Wolf.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and so he just knew from probably my voice, and I never said a word, and I went down to school. And he was there when the boy arrived in the morning. And he didn't do anything to him, but he said enough in a very quiet way that boy never caused me any more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the kind of discipline at least I had in the rural school.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was, it was something you did. And when I think of all the talk and all the stuff now, and the hardship that goes on, and the I don't care spirit, and all that the children have, there's something, it's not as good.
No, it isn't. Something is lacking.
There's a respect. There was respect in those rural schools. And the teachers were somebody, and we had to conduct ourselves as somebody. And, well, for instance, one of the reasons I am sure one of the reasons I didn't stop smoking was because I knew that I could not smoke in public or I would be criticized. And I just made up my mind that I wouldn't go around a corner to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, I think probably I would have taken up smoking with the next person. Mm-hmm. But it was illegal. It was not to be done.
Now, those were still the days when teachers could not get married.
Oh, yes.
And teach.
Oh, sure. Years later, I got married and taught and
didn't tell them.
Just didn't tell them. And it was really frustrating.
But at this point, had you been married, you would not have.
Oh, no, we would never have gotten a job. Yeah. Never.
Was that just the climate of the times, or was it the fact that there were so many people after those jobs?
Well, I think there were, no, I think that people felt that teachers were dedicated. I really do. Now I'm saying this off the top of my head. But I think they felt teachers were dedicated, and if they were married, they didn't have time to spend in the school.
Yes. That's one difference between then and now.
That's right.
Practically all your teachers, particularly your young teachers, are not only married, but have 2 or 3 children.
Well, now, for instance, I actually jumped a school from my first to the last one, and I told you I had problems. But when I was particularly when I was at the Forbes School, which was a hill school, and there were all kinds of hills around.
Yeah.
And, well, it happened out at the young school, too. I used to go sliding. I was the entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I furnished the entertainment because I was the chaperone. I would go out and go sliding with the kids, and I'd go skiing as poorly as I could ski. I skied. And out at the Forbes School, I used to go out to the barn and swing and do all this stuff. I was one of the kids during the weekend. And I used to tell them very frankly, now, I will play with you as long as you behave in school. Mm-hmm. And I always went out. I always went out at recess and at noon and played with the kids. And I was one of the kids. But I went into school, and when I got into school, okay, now school's begun. And and the kids loved it, and they loved the teachers who would go out and join them. Mm-hmm. And we'd go out, if there were any place where there were wild flowers around, we'd wander around and find flowers. And when I went to school as a kid, I'm backtracking. When I went to school as a kid, one of the things they did every spring was to have flower contests, and we used to go at recess time and sometimes not get back, or I guess at noon, quite as soon as we should. And the teacher always kind of forgave us and looked for flowers over in the woods up there on Jordan Hill. Yeah. And we knew the names of more flowers, and and we knew all the spots kind of where they grew and where to look for different flowers. And but yet I think the kids were very serious. And I think they were serious about learning. At least I felt that. Mm-hmm. When I was in Forbes, I sent out of the little Forbes school up here on the hill, I sent 3 or 4 kids to high school. Mm-hmm. and they were all good students. Now that wasn't due to me. That was due to, they were country children, but they learned, and they learned in a rural school. And they didn't have any of the advantages of having a one grade to a room. And yet, they learned their lessons, and they got their information. And they used to say, the country kids used to come in. I remember when I was in high school, we were particularly good in grammar and math. And the technical subjects, because you see, we could work with those while the teacher was doing other things. Maybe we weren't as good in some of the reading things. We didn't have as much as reading. We didn't have as many books.
Question. The superintendent's office now, just as our supervisory union office here in town, was that here in Colbrook?
Yes.
At that time?
And the superintendents used to come. Something that they used to do that I certainly approved of, and I was worried along with all the other teachers. It was but if you have to stand up for something, you do. And I mean, I think it still keeps teachers. I approve it. I think it kept us on our toes. The superintendent visited us at least once a month.
Oh, yes.
And he was the man who brought the supplies. But oftentimes,
Don't know who the first ones were at that particular location. That's all right. How about, you said Loney Gray had a tourist home,
yes,
somewhat like yours.
Yes.
Muriel and Jerry Smith.
Yes.
And then the Rainvilles to Muriel and Jerry. Was there anyone there before Muriel and Jerry? In that house on Cooper Hill?
No, not as, I think they got that. Seems to me, now someone's going to argue this probably, it could have been a Stevens house. I don't know why that, I'm not sure. But they bought that. I know of
Van Dyke? Was it Van Dyke?
No,
the lady that Van Dyke built it for.
Maybe.
But at any rate, the last one, before Ma and Pa Cormier, were Muriel and Jerry the last ones to have that? No, the Rainvilles were the last ones.
The Rainvilles had it.
Yeah, yes. And then Ma and Pa Cormier. Yes. Yeah. And then Purdy, of course, you had Loney Gray. And can you tell me again what you charged per night at your house?
I think we started at $2 per person. And then I'm sure we went up to $4. I did. I went up to $4 because I remember someone came down from Canada and I couldn't speak French very well. But somebody tried to get a room for Dur. And
you're going to give it to him for Dur.
No, lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then you raised it a little bit more after
and
the $4.
Then I raised it a little more, and I got up to 10 maybe. And of course, I think I used to charge about, I don't know, I think $20, $25 or something like that per week.
Per week,
which wouldn't be that much.
Yeah. How much did you charge per night? How high did you go per night?
Per person.
Per person.
But I did have rooms that would take 3 people, and had one room that would take 4 people. And
so it wasn't so much by the.
But it was per person.
Per person. And you went up to about $10 per person.
If there were a baby or a 2 or 3 year old.
Yeah. And did you serve breakfast?
Well, I have told some of the bed and breakfast people that I really didn't serve breakfast, but I made extra coffee a lot of times, and sometimes they brought something, some toast or something
Little
to
extras
go with
thrown
it.
in. Mm-hmm.
But that was mostly because I liked them. I enjoyed doing this. These were people that I sort of chose, and I had a chance to visit with some older people, and it was my paid company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me again the years that you ran this tourist home? From what year to what year? 1955, did you say?
I think it was 1955 until
Till you sold the house? You still had people in there, didn't you?
I had people up until the time I sold the house.
So that would be 1986?
But the last of my running the place, I had mostly people who came, roomers. They were steady people. And I didn't feed them. But it gave me more freedom. I stopped having as many tourists. Well, the trailers that came in, the workmen, because I had lots of workmen, and I had workmen who came in on Monday morning and left Friday, and that was a good deal to me because I oftentimes would fill the house, and on Friday they'd leave, and I would. It saved me a lot of work. I didn't have to do as much laundry during the weeks, of course, and in the at the weekends I do up the rooms for them, especially for guests, and there would be people over the weekends coming up here to visit on trips.
Then, of course, in addition to the rooms, you also had the apartment.
And I had an apartment upstairs, which I had. That was full most of the time.
Yeah. Okay, and I just wanted to go on from there now. So this spanned the years approximately 1955 when you began through 1986, even though your clientele changed a little bit and your rental situation was a little bit different. Then let's jump now to the year 1970 when you retired from teaching formally. You were something like 62 at the time. You took early retirement, didn't you? Yeah. What did you do? You mentioned going to the high school and running sewing classes. Can you?
Well, I remember when I retired. I remembered all out of the clear sky all the time, all through the years. I have remembered a former teacher in Keene trying to influence me to go to art school. And that's all there was to it. I never did anything about it. I said I couldn't afford to go to art school in the first place, and it would be much more difficult to get a job teaching art at the time than it would be to get a regular job as I had been doing. So I continued to teach. But I called Mr. You want me to do?
Yes, of course we do.
I called Mr. Dana, and I asked him if it were possible for anybody in town to go to school, go back to high school, and because I'd like to take an art course. And he said, yes, just call Mr. Irving. I don't know, my name never got in the book or not, but I was there.
Yeah.
And I went for half a year, and at the half year, the teacher, Tris Nelson, who was teaching, had a chance to work full time in 7th grade in English. And Mr. Irwin called me up and asked me if I would take over the art class, which I thought was a big joke.
For the remainder of the year, do you mean?
For the remainder of the year, and I thought it was a big joke. And I said, Mr. Irwin, I'm a student over there.
Now this was probably 1970, 71, that
yes,
school
it was
year?
That year, I
yeah.
think. Yeah. And he said, you're a teacher too.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm sure you can do it. And I said, well, I will under the condition that I can get some help from Chris Nelson if I need it. And I said, I can teach English and I can take over the room if we can swap off occasionally. And because I'm sure the kids would like to see her and have her give them suggestions maybe. And so that's the way we worked it out. And I was there the last half year. And it was great.
Then you taught the class. Then later on you took lessons from Diane Pierce when she was the art teacher? She came in after Tris, did she?
Well, I took lessons. She gave a course up at the grammar school, up the other school, in the little school, where they now have music from
Oh, that little building up there?
The little
building, the music building.
And she gave a course up there, and the adults went up there. Was
that your first contact with her?
That was my first contact with her. And then she gave lessons at her house. And we became quite friendly. And we used to go out together to sketch and paint. And I used to feel that the greatest base I had in painting was from her. She had studied at some time at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And she really knew stuff like that.
Yeah. So you felt that you gained quite a bit from her.
Oh, yeah. Gained everything.
Yeah.
And then I got into it all over.
Now, did you teach any more at school in the painting classes, in the art classes, or did you just simply go on your own?
I went on my own, and I substituted. Incidentally, I substituted all the time up until
I think we said 1985. You stopped substituting. So you were something like 77 when you actually stopped substituting. You've been doing it all that time. And I think Mrs. McLean was very happy to have you because she knew the quality of your work. She knew that she didn't have to worry about discipline. She knew that you were creative. And what did she say to you regarding creativity? Remember?
Maybe you're referring to the time that she said to me, if at any time in school you have any ideas that you'd like to bring to school and give to the children, feel free to do what you like to anytime. And I remember I read a book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, and I did the exercises in it and had quite a lot of sketches. And I won't go into detail about it, but it's a wonderful book. And so I brought the sketches up and put them on the bulletin board up on the blackboard. And the kids loved them because one of them particularly was an exercise in drawing a person's face by looking at a picture bottom side up. Because what the theory was that you know so much about the rest of a person's face that you put in eyes, nose, mouth, and if you're drawing what you see, and I didn't know I could do such a thing, but I guess I shouldn't do.
No, that's all right.
I think it would be really hard for somebody to stand on his head for me drawing.
Now, when you were at the elementary school under Mrs. McLean, substituting up there, you did a fair amount of work with the special ed
Yes,
kids.
I did. I had two sessions. One teacher was out of school because she had a child, and the other teacher left toward the end of the year.
This was in the early 80s now that we're talking about, probably.
I would think,
Yeah.
It was once a child was cleared, it was out behind it.
But that was special ed again.
That was the older children. And the other people that were the
So really this made quite a gamut of teaching for you, a wide range of teaching. Did you feel that you got satisfaction from the special ed, from helping the special ed kids? It was a challenge.
Many teachers who taught in primary school wouldn't go into that school to teach because of the age of the kids, and they could be very frustrated. But I had a hefty experience because I had taught the kids middle school for a lot of years, hundreds of kids. And it was a challenge, but it was well, I said, it is the fun.
Oh, yeah. Because I can remember your teaching in special ed people because I was librarian at that time, and you used to come to me with extra materials when you had a little different idea that you wanted to throw out to them. You thought it might be more challenging than just going along with the textbook. And you also found from time to time that the textbooks that you were given to use were terribly outdated. So you really had to do quite a bit on your own as far as coming up with materials. Yeah. Yeah. So I remember from the original interviews back in '81 that several of us, your daughter, myself, and several other people were trying to persuade you to have a one-woman art show. So eventually, in 1983, and 1982, okay, correct me, you had your first one. Can you tell us a little something about that? Were you surprised at the result?
Well,
you had it in your home on the first floor.
Well, I had a feeling all of a sudden, and this concept was created by a woman who was genuinely down to it. But she was straight on complimenting people with exactly. I think she was honest, and I think she was.
Oh, I'm sure she was.
But I thought all of a sudden, I have always been I wanted to really enjoy it. And then the last time I was really good at the sixth grade paper. And so I called my dad and she said, good price on him and right price in the morning I did. And I came in and I asked her I came home and then I priced it and we decided on what to do.
Oh, I bet. I remember calling in and seeing you with a wad full of bills in your hand waving it, and I said, golly, you got to float alone to one of us. You certainly did. That very first year particularly.
And last time I saw this is copy the masters. And maybe I'll try to do sometime because last year we had it last year. But I I did win
Mm-hmm.
numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the last one I started. That was high school.
Now, you also had another show the next summer, didn't you, in 1983? How successful was that?
Uh, I thought it was very successful. I sold quite a lot of paintings, but that I will excuse myself from sharing the first, the first people that ever seen my painting. And naturally, I feel about me.
Yeah, because it was a new idea and a new time.
But I had to later, I usually actually I couldn't do it. I don't know what to tell you who actually
No, it's always, you know, but that was a wonderful ego boost.
Yeah.
And you felt that you really, that the talent was there.
I have told them a few now, but I don't have too many left in first place, and I haven't been doing this about painting.
Well, I know that
I
we,
read painting all
yeah,
the time,
yeah.
but that's it. And I look at it and I think, well, maybe I could paint something like that. And then,
Well, I know, I'm sure you still has, I know I have said to you, come on now, stop talking about it. Get those canvases out and those paints out and get ready because Grandma Moses is doing it at 101.
well, I don't think that I want to be again. I have to. She made a lot of money.
Yeah, she certainly did. Had a lot of
I
sense.
read her story, and she was remarkable. She was a teacher, certainly. She loved the painting. But I understood from her story that she cut out a lot of pictures and used those and she was repeatedly, and that's fine. She made the painting. She got them done.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a wonderful thing, and I think by putting them up for sale, you got a little idea of the wonderful, the worth that people were willing to pay. And sometimes in a small town like this, unless you're getting out of town tourists, the local people might say, oh, well, I don't think it's worth that, or I think it's too much money, and you just never know from your fears what's going to happen. So it was a good test. And I think it was a wonderful experience for you, and certainly for us, watching all this happen. It was great.
It was a great change from teaching, but it gave me an inspiration to work. And I have said so many times to people, in fact, I was telling the community to anything. And so I came to find out to ask you how I could retire.
Yes.
Yeah. And I said, it would be good to retire as fast as you can in your mind and decide what things you can do, what things you haven't been able to do. And just you have to start. You go from one thing to another. And right now I'm going too fast and wanting to do nothing.
But you've been through quite a bit. Now I'm going to jump a little bit. We're going up to 19, you were still in Sutton Place when the art show began. And you were there until 1986 when the sale of the house took place. I remember jokingly sitting with one time and saying, hey guys, you had asked $75,000 for the house. I mean, gee, that's a lot of money. How about 55,000? Maybe I could do that. You have a B&B. I was thinking, well, for my own retirement years, I would get involved in something like that. And started while I was still working at school and pick it up. And he said, no way. I've asked for 75,000 and that's what I'm going to wait for. And I know after I sold my own house, I would come up and you would say, oh, it's just all the time. Because you knew it would make all the difference in the world for you financially. paying taxes, keeping the house up at that stage in your life was a tough job. So in 1986, tell us what happened. That's when you sold the house.
Yeah, it had been on the market for a long time. It's been on the market for 4 years. That isn't really a long time. And I had had a few people a few bites, but they just thought it was too much. It wasn't what they needed. Somebody wanted to use it as a community. They wanted to do the barn over and have a workshop.
In the barn.
Yeah. And they thought it was very, very expensive. And then at this stage, and one of the things that are using in real estate came and I told him to take the thing. And because I decided I was doing such a study, where and it was very comfortable. And then we kept doing about it, and he had already talked to the real estate union.
Yes, because I was going to say you had 6 real estate agents at that time.
And he said, I'm not help. I talked to her, she was in her life, and we discussed what happened, and
You lived upstairs for a while, didn't you?
I lived upstairs for about 6 months after
one time upstairs.
I didn't know that I'd already moved upstairs because I knew that she was telling me before I was teaching. There were some of these things I had to thinking about doing.
And during the time that you were upstairs in the apartment, that was the time when you threw a 75th birthday party, I think. Yeah, and your family came in, quite a few people got there, and this was very nice. And she set it up, it was her idea. Some of us helped a little bit, calling people, but it was her idea, and it was very, very nice. But before we... go ahead.
I had funny experience when I was up there at one time, because I used to serve the home. And my kids came in to me, and it was quite late at night. And I remember I was there, I was in the neighborhood. And so I took down the road and was to a policeman. And he said, "Well, from the door," and so that's what we had to policeman. But I had been used to telephone, I think, before I actually done and decided to wondering what to do.
Now, this is when the Kelseys were actually as owners and you were renting from them.
Yes, and I was alone in the house. And he used the telephone and called Diamond to tell him that the door was unlocked. And we found the Diamond. And so, anyway, in the meantime, I went up to him and we put there and talked to the guy, and I sat on the top of the stairs and I talked to the car, and everybody disappeared.
Yeah.
And the policeman said, you don't need to have anybody fill your house. She was not else.
Yeah. See what was going on.
But I was used to the house.
Yeah.
I
Now, before we leave this, can you give us a little background on the house itself? How old the house was, how many owners there were before you and John took it over? Did you tell me at one time that the house went back to 1868? Why does that figure stick in my mind?
Well, I think there was a number on that, and I can't find the the houses
That's for the bicentennial. I think you told me 1868. Who is the house built for? And where did Seneca Miller come into it? Well, Seneca Miller, the house is built. Is there someone else? Miller, I think there was somebody, I think Seneca Miller bought from the built the house. And Seneca Miller was, grandfather, on his step-grandfather on his mother's side, huh? Yeah. And he bought the house, and I think he was the one that did it over. It was once just a regular New England house, black. And he took the power and then people and probably on the boundary. And because at that time, I think that people who had money left to had a little bit, had a little more. But the old house had a white fence around it. And I used to look at the house many times and see the others who had that new house. And the old house was square, but yeah. And it had nice, it had a side door, and you see that it had a front door. Now, did John's mother grow up in that house? How did that follow? John's mother was doing all the gray place, I call it the gray place, it's the one, the Corbett house and now the Nancy house. It was the 26. It was the gray place and the Corbett house. And it was the kitchen before the grave. And he was born out there. And he was So the house out on the Mohawk, out on Route 26, where Mildred was born and raised, was a Pitkin house. Then it became a Gray house, then a Corbett house, then a Mankey house. How long did she ever come in to live at the Sutton place in town, or was she? How did that work out? I think the story goes, and I really don't know, but I think she was only Millie Pitkin. Yes, John's mother. Yes. I think she was only 2 when she came in. She moved into town. To live at Sutton Place. She may have been older than that. I don't know. I really don't know. But of course, when her mother lived there,
all of that, I guess, after she had married,
Merrill.
Seneca
Merrill?
No, yes.
Yes, Seneca Merrill.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. When had Millie been born? Do you remember the date of her birth? The year? Oh, I won't get into it. I just wanted to get a little time frame there. Yeah. Okay.
Well, now wait a minute. It's going to take too long. John was born in 1906. And,
how old was she when he was born?
And she was 37, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to stop your machine.
Yeah, that's all right. I just wanted out of curiosity if there are any more dates we could add to this to increase the interest in it. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the house? Oh, yes. I want to ask you some more about the house. John and Lucille then grew up in that house.
They grew up in that house.
And Mildred Pitkin married Charles Sutton.
The grandmother lived there until she died.
Mm-hmm. And then John's mother and father lived there and raised their family there. Now, pick it up from there for me if you can. After his mother died,
the father lived on for a while
in the house.
Yes, he lived for quite a while. 2 years, something like that. He may have been older than that. He may have been older than that.
Because all the time that the mother and father lived there, or for most of the time, the father, Dr. Sutton, Dr. Charles Sutton, had a dental practice in Culver, right across the street.
He lived there. In fact, he was a dentist until almost up to the time he died. It was a matter of probably weeks at the most. I think perhaps just days
before he died. But he was more or less in the saddle, so to speak. Yeah.
He always went to the office.
When did he die? Do you remember what year it was?
Yes, I could tell you that because let's see.
1943.
But he died about 22.
A year or so before Charlie was born. Yeah. Then what happened?
You know more about this than I do.
Well, no, you told me some of these things. Let's see, you and John and Lucille and Shumway, Marshall, shared the house after that, is that right?
We shared the house for quite a while, and it was still Sutton Marshall's child. Was born there.
The oldest child.
Well, not born there, but
born while they lived in there.
They lived there.
Yeah.
And he was 6 months old when they moved out.
So they lived downstairs in the house, did they? And you folks lived upstairs?
No, we all lived together.
Okay, the house. Yeah.
No, Dr. Sutton was alive then.
Yeah.
When he was alive until they moved away, and then John and the doctor and I lived there for a while. But Dr. Sutton died before my time.
Just about a year or so before. So then...
No, not a year. No.
Yeah. 42, 41, 42. Yeah, that's all right. Then how long were you and John and Lucille and Shumway sharing the house? You said they lived...
No, we shared the house from, well, it was probably about a year and it may have been a year and a half.
Then they moved.
Now these numbers I'm not quite sure of because I'm trying to keep that thing rolling quite so long.
That's all right. they then moved to
Then they moved to Conway. Mm-hmm.
And how did you, if you don't mind my asking you, if you don't want to answer it, if you don't have to, how did you arrange the sale of the house with Lucille?
Oh, well, Lucille owned the house for quite a while, and
it had been left to her, hadn't it?
It had been left to her. It actually never belonged to the mother.
Mm-hmm.
It was left by the grandmother to Lucille, because she always thought, as a lot of older people did, if a girl didn't marry, she should have a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And men were supposed to find their own home. And because they were supposed to do the business. But anyway,
well, you and John and Lucille and Chemway had to come to a meeting of the minds as to what they would get for the house.
In that house then, before Lucille was married, Lucille and I had a dress shop.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We had a dress shop, and I did the altering of the clothes, and we had a lot of fun.
We went on buying trips to New York together in Boston.
And I remember, this is a side issue, but I remember that Lucille and Sean were anxious to get married, and so she lived out on the farm, and they were anxious to get married, and she said they couldn't, I think it was about a week or so that they kept their marriage a secret, because she said she had to have a dress sale before she could tell it, and she was married, and they could go away on a honeymoon.
They have the money to do it.
Well, and then the selling, the dress shop.
Yes. Then the house passed to you and John.
Yeah.
And how did that
Not for quite a while, because she rented the house then after her father had died.
Mm-hmm.
She rented the house to John and Jenny Mama.
Okay. The house or a part of the house?
They were
downstairs, the apartment, yeah.
And John and I moved upstairs. We rented the kitchen upstairs, and we moved upstairs again. And we lived there until Lucille was 3 and Charlie was 5.
Mm-hmm. So that would have been about 1946 or 7.
Charlie was 43, yeah. And
1948.
About 1948, and then we moved downstairs to go to the house. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was quite a while, as you have on the tape, that we then we started having this.
That would have been 55 at that time. Yeah. Now, in the meantime, after your children were born, you had gone back to teaching, hadn't you?
After when the school was fine, I started teaching. Mm-hmm.
So that would have been 1950, 1949, 1950.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I started teaching. I think it worked out. I think it was the year 49, but the school was really super. And I went teaching then, and I taught in the Valley School. Yeah. And then when
I think we covered some of this in the earlier stage. Yeah. Now, I want to jump a little bit more now. The sale of the house was followed by an auction in the summer, in June, I think it was, wasn't it, of 86? And you had Archie Greenberg come up, and that pretty much cleaned out the things that needed to be cleaned out.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I sort of, as everybody does, I had to sort out things that I expected I would be in a 3-4 room apartment. And I had hoped to have sometimes too. And I didn't expect I would have a house as big as this one. And so I saved enough friendship for myself. So the kids took them home. So when the kids took them home and found that they wanted to see, we said yes. We got that settled and then
Then, in the fall, in October of '86, you moved down to where you are now, to Bob Moore's, to rent in Bob Moore's house, which really is a separate little house in and of itself, is it not?
Actually, it is the house that belongs to this establishment.
Yeah, your funeral house.
Mrs.
Newman.
Newman's home. And we always lived here, and of course, to go on about houses, at the time that the mayor, Bob Moore came up for a while and stayed, and I guess he had a room there somewhere, I don't know where, he had a room somewhere. And then eventually by the time he was kid, and Mrs. Newman lived on here until
in your present apartment, your present side of the house.
Yeah. And they built, and the Mills built a better apartment over the funeral home.
Now, in those years then, bringing it forward to the present, we pick up on some other things that you've done. I remember Lucille in 1988 had an 80th birthday party for you, so we all had a little hand in that. And that was here in this house, in 1988, when you were 80 years old. I got that one? 88. Yeah. I guess 75 and 1983, 10 years ago. But then in those intervening years, say between 1988 and the present, you've done some traveling.
No, you come back to, when you got back to the school, you mentioned, I gave 3 spelling classes. Yeah.
You mentioned that briefly a little earlier on in the space.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring you pretty much up to date now. So you become involved in things like handwork, quilting, hatting. I remember you telling me that you used to go down to Jane Markman's on what day of the week was it? Did you go down there? Sunday, the Sabbath. And she did quilting classes. And you finished the quilt that you started how many years ago?
The quilt was at least 50 years old. Didn't I tell you that?
No, you didn't. I don't believe you did.
Yeah, the quilt is made of pieces of cloth that my children in Essex, when I was teaching, the mother who sewed had scraps of cloth, and they brought it in, and I made a part of the quilt, all the patterns of the quilt, the family of the quilt, as my school children taught.
I didn't know that. I knew that you completed the quilt after all those years, but I hadn't realized that. And those sessions got to be weekly deals, and there were several other ladies also involved in quilting as well. And you got into knitting. I remember you made me an Irish sweater. You did that. Crocheting. And also got in some travel. I remember I've got it down here as 1989. Now stop me if I'm wrong. You went to overseas to Spain and Morocco?
I went to Portugal.
Portugal.
Portugal. We didn't stop long, but we were there. And to
Morocco. And followed by some within the country trips to, for instance, Charleston, South Carolina, which we do, we would take you on the route on for the now and then. And then also with this tour, you went to Ireland and did a little trying to trace your father's history over there. How successful? Were you at all successful in finding any of his background?
There was one, it was rather a funny thing that happened. If you did find the first name he started finding, so he started calling them all the time from hiding. So he found one man. He said, begin to service me. And I was quite a lot older than he was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, he sounds awfully old. As he did.
Yeah.
And in fact, he told him a little bit about my father coming from Ireland, and he trying to find out if he had him.
Where in Ireland was this? Do you remember?
It's somewhere in the vicinity of Southern Ireland, somewhere in the vicinity of Dublin.
Of Dublin?
No, I don't know.
A small town outside of Dublin?
And so he talked with his peers, and he had one to me about what was funny was that he had told him that my father, the third grandfather, ran away from home with three other boys.
Mm-hmm.
And to Canada. And the man said, well, if that had happened in our family, I don't believe anybody did have to hospital. And I told the school afterwards, I said, it never occurred to me that they would feel shame and not to do that entirely. They would have felt too shame because they would have taken they would have felt that they had done something wrong in order to have
this boy run away.
Mm-hmm.
And you always told me that you thought that your father had possibly been going to a private school.
I was quite sure that he went to a boarding school because he said he didn't spend too much time at home.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't spent too much time at home. That was probably in the later years that he was only about 13 or 14 when he came over. And came to Canada. And he said, I didn't see too much of my family. And I always used to kid him and I said, Howdy, it's not an Irish name. You must have had some ancestors coming from England over there.
Yeah.
And
so they went back and forth across that Irish sea. So it's that kind of jumble.
But he always spoke very highly of his mother. He always said that his father was a very sick man.
Mm-hmm.
And so was my father.
Yes, he was sharing this with his children. Yeah.
He didn't realize that.
Now, after that, we're picking it up, I'm thinking of 1991 in that time frame. You have done quite a bit of visiting at the nursing home. Ida was there. Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget that. To England and Scotland with your friend Laura McLean from Hampton. That's right. Then after that, it seems that your nursing home visits started to step up because Ida went to the nursing home from her daughter's house, your older sister. And in visiting her, you also visited other people at the nursing home.
No, actually, I really got to know a lot of people up there, and I used to talk to them to different people, and of course, also George was there. And so I used to see them, and I feel that.
And who do you visit now?
Well, I visited
Forbes, Althea Forbes.
I visit her and I sometimes visit other people.
Mm-hmm. How often are you asked to go up there then?
And I have to say, I love all the nurses here.
Oh, they're wonderful.
And I try to get up here
once a week. Mm-hmm. Now, we're just about at the close of this. Ida died in 1993, is that right? She's been gone 2 years, just about. Yes, because she was 100.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, she was born in her 101st year that she died. And I think where she was the oldest of the family, the death of Ida was kind of, what would you call it? Yes, and to the family in general. She was kind of the glue that kept everybody together, wasn't she? The matriarch, whatever you want to call it. She was always attached to everybody. Anybody who was related to her was family. Attached to everyone who was there to see her. She was the road to company because yeah, and the family news kind of radiated out from Ida, didn't it? And whatever was going on in the family, she was sort of the center of the information block. Yeah. Yeah. No, the husband was the general manager. Which was very up. I remember you saying to me after she died that you knew it was coming, but when it came, it was very good. Well, in a way, it still is because I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I said, I still think history sometimes. Mm-hmm. And after I did. Of course, it doesn't stay with me, but I feel, she won't do that, but I have to find out for him. Nobody ever gets to know about I'm certainly proud of that. Yeah. Well, now we brought you up to 1995, and you're reading, you're studying, you're traveling whenever you get a chance, you're taking your daily walk, and sometimes it's hard for those of us who go with you to keep up with you. But it's wonderful. You're healthy, and you are so fortunate. And I know that you know that yourself. That's right. Anything that's free for 65 and above, great. I think we'll probably wind it up there for the time being, and then we'll update this in another 10 years. I think that anybody who's interested in listening to this will probably stop and make it through 10 minutes. I doubt it. Okay.